the family here. Are they enjoying themselves?
Yeah, they enjoy very much the country. So we spent also 2 weeks ahead of the competition in the Atacama Desert, and we had a lot of fun already.
It's places when you're 4 or 5, you're a bit low, and that's not usual, you know.
4,500 metres and being low.
Yeah.
Yeah. And will we see you on the podium?
I always try,
Interesting start today with under a minute to go. We had 2 competitors that were the wrong side of the line and they ended up with penalties.
It was difficult because they didn't get the altitude on previous days and it was very tight coming back and into the start.
Although descending, controlling your altitude and your speed as you come across the line was still really tricky, and you see Lucas here using his air brakes, coming out of the turn and then heading towards the start line.
Yeah, he's just trying to control it. He's looking for the gliders in front so he can get a nice run into the start.
The start pretty even, nobody making any significant move left or right, and that went on pretty much all the way to the first turn. But Roman Mercek just pushed on, didn't get the climbs the others had, and went round the first turn low, which meant he had to come back onto the ridge and climb, and the others came back in higher.
And the following group, they climbed on the top of the first mountain, and that was really useful for them to make a plan for where to go after that.
Just one turn and then moving on, and that was enough to keep them high.
And the split that came soon after that is a very important part of the flight.
And you can see on the right hand side of the screen that those that didn't make the climb ended up down in the valley to the right.
And it was really important at this point to have the option of being able to stay up on the high ground because it was such a weak day.
This group on the left were able to stay further east and higher, where the group on the right were just stuck on this ridge.
And that altitude allowed them to go right to the top of the mountain, back up to 3,000 meters.
Through the next turn point, and while they were still maintaining their altitude, they were able to have this choice of going left or right.
And the group which took off to the right with Giorgio Goletto and Didier were planning to run the ridges low down to the southern turning point.
But the energy in these ridges wasn't as good as those to the left and higher, and this group on the left hand side made it to the turn point first.
And they all ended up on the ridges about 70 kilometers out from the turn.
And going through the turn point, it's interesting to see how Sebastian takes this turn. The group in front were 1.2 kilometers ahead at this stage, but by the angle he went through the turn point, he was able to reduce that deficit by 200 or 300 meters.
That's right. And it was now back onto the hills for the fast run back. Not as quick as normal because the hills were much weaker.
Sebastian giving us a masterclass of picking out every piece of energy as he worked his way in and out of all of the ridges and spines.
And much lower than we would normally expect to have these ridges run. Sometimes getting it really quite low on the ridges, but very close racing.
Energy quite low now, and they are low. So they're having to just control their speed, use as much of the terrain as they possibly can before making the final glide across the valley to the checkpoint.
And some guys didn't quite make it and they had to stop and climb. They got only 200 or 300 meters above the valley.
But the two Sebastians were literally neck and neck as they came into the turn point. Sebastian Nagel taking it wide to get on the inside of Sebastian Carver as they came into the turn point, into the finish.
And whilst Sebastian Carver finished a second ahead, unfortunately they both got a penalty, but he got 1 second more penalty.
Congratulations, Sebastian, a very close finish and a very exciting race. Did you do enough to do it?
Yeah, I hope. It was so close that my winglet was on the tail of Sebastian, so I don't know, the cockpit beside, it's the same size like a double seater. Yeah, it was so close, I have a lot of adrenaline, I'm sweating, so whew, it was amazing, yeah.
And an exciting flight?
Yeah, the first terminal was a little bit a big gaggle, so nobody knows how to thermal. If we fixed everything, I was the lowest. But then Mario and I catched a really good thermal in Valle de Muerte. And then, yeah, it was ridge running. And I love to fly in this house because everything is on the ridge. And I want to stay a little bit above Thomas and Mario to have enough energy for the end. But Sebastian, I thought he thought the same and stayed also high. So it was really, really close.